Hi guys, my name's Adrian. I'm the Design Art and Technology Technician at OLMC. If you haven't met me before, it's my job to help teachers to help you guys learn new creative skills. Today I'm going to be showing you one of my all-time favorite apps. It's the best photo editing app for a smart device that I know of. It's called Snapseed, and at least as of July 2020, it's free to download, which is amazing. The reason why I think Snapseed is so fantastic is that it offers you a lot of the control that professional photo editing apps offer you, but it has a really simple and easy to learn interface. So let's get into it. Open a photo, you obviously just tap anywhere on your screen or at the top left-hand corner. So you can navigate around your image quickly by zooming in by reverse pinching, or you can zoom out by pinching inward. Once you are zoomed in, you have a blue box in the white box in the bottom left-hand corner of the image. You can put your finger on the blue box to navigate around your image. You can also two-finger scroll around the screen in order to zoom around or move around your image while you're zoomed in. You can double tap to zoom in at 100%, and you can double tap again to zoom out 100%. Now, you've got a few options along the bottom: looks, tools, and export. We will get to looks. I would just want to start off in tools because it's kind of the most important place to start. So just select tools at the bottom of your screen, and I'm going to start off with tune image. Now, actually, before we jump into the particular tool, I might just discuss what these tools are. So along the top row of tools that you've got, tune image, details, curves, white balance, they're your really basic tools that you'll probably be using 90% of the time. Then below that, you've got a row of compositional tools. So you've got crop, rotate, perspective, which is really useful for architectural photography, and you've got expand, which is kind of the reverse of crop. So those tools are all about modifying your composition. Below that, you've got a range of local sort of adjusting tools. So selective, brush, and healing are all about making small changes to particular parts of your photographs. And then beneath that, you've got a range of tools that kind of work like filters. They'll make overall tonal or coloristic changes to your image. We will get into those a little bit later. But just to begin, let's start with the absolute basics, tune image. So once you have actually entered a tool, you have a range of adjustments that you can make within that tool. There's a little slider icon at the bottom left of the screen next to the X button. If we click on that, we can see a range of adjustments available to us. So under tune image, we've got our brightness, contrast, saturation, shadows, and warmth. Now, there's a magic wand tool which will automatically apply these adjustments in the best way that Snapseed knows how to, but the entire point of having a photo editing app is that you have some creative control over your app. So I'm assuming if you're watching this, you might want to learn how to change specific things about your photograph. Now, at the top, so we've got brightness, which is set as the default first one to change. If you put your finger on the screen and move it to the right or to the left, anywhere on the screen, you can actually adjust the amount of brightness in your photo. So I'm so old, the very first time I used the app, I put my finger on the very top part of the screen and moved it like that, which is stupid because it'll keep opening your menu options if you're on an Apple device. You don't need to do that. You can just put your finger anywhere on the screen and move it to the left or right. So I'm not going to change the brightness of my image because I don't need to. The image is bright enough. But maybe I'll make a quick change to my shadows. I might just darken the image a little bit. And I might also darken the highlights a little bit. Now what that's going to do is it's going to bring me back some information in the lighter areas of the photo. So the really bright parts of the hair right now, if I push the highlights up, you can kind of see that they start to lose a lot of the information they had. Whereas if I bring the highlights down, you start to gain a little bit more information in the highlights. So this is a good point, or a good point to talk about what we're actually doing in tune image. So tune image is really good for bringing out the most information in your photographs. It's not really the best place to make your really creative changes where you're, darkening large parts of the photo or turning more of the photo blue or yellow or something like that. It's really just about bringing out information in the photograph. And as you can see from this photograph, there's already plenty of information in it. So I'm not really going to be doing too much in my tune image. The tool that I want to just quickly jump into is details, which is all your sharpening tools. So the way sharpening works is it adds contrast to particular parts of your photo that already have some contrast. So if you kind of look at the teeth, if I click my slider icon at the bottom, I'll go into sharpening. If you kind of look at the teeth in the photograph, as I move the sharpening up, you can see that the highlight areas of the teeth are getting brighter, whereas the little shadows around the teeth are getting darker. Now, when we're sharpening an image, whatever software we're using, in this case Snapseed, it's a good idea to be zoomed in at pretty much 100% to make sure that the photo's not looking too grainy, because when you sharpen your image, it'll actually add a little bit of grain to it as well. You kind of want to zoom back out and back in to make sure nothing weird is going on while you do this. But yeah, and the particular areas that we're going to be looking at, or we really want to be looking at, things like teeth and eyes. Those are the things that will look really, really weird if you over sharpen them, but they're also the things that you might want to sharpen. Now, something I haven't mentioned about Snapseed yet is that if you put your finger on the screen, you can actually see your before and after. So if I put my finger and hold on the screen now, you can see before I've added my sharpening, and then if I release, you can see after I've added the sharpening. Now that's obviously way, way too much sharpening. It looks really, really quite bad. But if I pull that back slightly, we can see our before and after. And what we're really looking for when we sharpen an image is kind of like, for those of you that have glasses, it's almost like you're taking your glasses off and putting them back on again. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that level of sharpening. Let's take a look at some more tools. Now we've got our curves tool. We can actually modify our curve manually, but we also at the bottom of the screen, if we click the swatches icon, we actually have a range of curves presets available to us. And I actually think the soft contrast is probably a good way to go, particularly for this photo. Okay, so we've got our range of other adjusting tools, but I don't really want to adjust the composition of this photograph, and they're all pretty straightforward to use. What I might get into is the selective tool, which I really, really like. Now, you can use a brush or a selective tool to make adjustments to particular parts of your photo. I might jump in and use the selective tool just because I think it's such an impressive tool. I want to show you how to use it. So when you've got a little plus icon at the bottom of the screen highlighted in blue, you can actually add a point to your image. Now I'm going to click a point at the bottom right hand corner of my image because that's a point I actually would like to darken. It's looking a little bit too bright, and if I darken around the figure, I think it's going to accentuate the figure a little bit. Now, it looks like there's just a point there, but if we reverse pinch around that point, we can see in red what's actually being affected by that point. Right now the point has a B on it, and that's for brightness. So it's going to make a brightness adjustment to the area of the photo that was in red if we slide our finger to the left or right. So just like any adjustment, except it's in that particular area. Now, if you put your finger anywhere on the screen and move it up or down, you can see you actually have a brightness, a contrast, a saturation, and a structure adjustment available. I really just want to use the brightness here, and I think that's what the tool is most useful for making tonal changes to my image. I'd like to make the bottom left-hand corner of the image that little bit darker, so I might click on the plus icon at the bottom of the screen, put a point just under the elbow there, reverse pinch and pinch to just make sure that what I want to adjust is highlighted in red. I don't want the arm to be covered in red because I don't want to darken that. I want to darken the area around the arm. Once I've got that in place, I can put my finger anywhere on the screen and I'll move it to the left, and that will allow me to darken that corner. If I put my finger on the gray area of the screen, I can see my before and after, and that shows me what my change has done. So that's all looking pretty good so far. I might just very quickly talk about healing tools because that's something that a lot of people want to know about. Obviously, it's something we all know from Photoshop. It's probably what most people think of when they use the verb to Photoshop an image. They mean to get rid of imperfections. So we've actually got a little light at the top of the screen here, which I don't really like. It's kind of out of focus. What I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom into that to make my adjustment a bit more accurately. It's pretty hard to get to the very top corner of the image by using my 2-finger scroll, but if I put my finger in the white box and move the blue box around, it becomes a little bit easier to access that top part of the screen. And from here, I can just paint with my healing tool to erase the area that I want to get rid of. I actually kind of find the healing tool on Snapseed to be a little bit more, it's a little bit clumsy compared to Photoshop. Obviously, you've only got the kind of workspace of a smartphone screen, which isn't a whole lot of space to work in. But, it gets you some pretty basic, or it makes available some pretty basic adjustments and healing adjustments that you might want. And then if I put my finger on the screen and release it, I can see the changes that I've made so far. So the healing tool's done a pretty good job of getting rid of some of the stuff that's a bit distracting in the image. But yeah, as I said, it's a little bit more clumsy than using, obviously, a desktop photo editing software, but it's pretty good. So we can go back into tools now. Then we've got a whole range of filter style tools. I'm just going to jump into one of them that I use a lot, which is the grainy film tool. So I'm going to go into that. Now, If I zoom into my image, I can see it's added a lot of grain to the image. I don't really like that, so I'm going to reduce the grain completely. But if I click the slider on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, I can see I get grain and style strength. So with my style strength, I want to kind of turn that down a little bit so it's not too strong. But you can kind of see what it's doing. It's modifying the colors and tones of the photograph. It's actually adding a fair bit of blue to the shadows, and it's warming up the highlights a little bit, which is good for my image because the highlights are the brighter parts, which is the figure, and that's what I want to accentuate. So that looks better with a bit of a warmer color. And then the shadows, the darker bits in the background, that will look a bit better blue because it'll push the highlights in the figure out a little bit more by contrast. So I think that looks pretty good. Now we can take a look at what we've done to our photograph by putting our finger on the screen, holding it, and I'm pretty happy with all those changes. Let's get the photo out of Snapseed for the moment. So we'll talk about exporting, which is at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Now, if we export, we can go to save a copy and export. Saving a copy will actually save a copy of your Snapseed file to a folder in your Photos document. So Snapseed will make a folder called Snapseed where it'll save that photo. And the good thing about that is we can actually go back and reverse all of our edits if we want to. If you click export, it's going to export a JPEG copy of your photo out, and that's something that you can use if you wanted to put it on Instagram or share it with someone or put it on a website or whatever it is you wanted to do with the photo. But I was talking when I was talking about exporting about reversing changes. So that's actually probably the most powerful thing that Snapseed allows you to do that most photo editing apps don't allow you to do. So if you look at the top of the screen, you can see there's actually like two squares with a reverse arrow on top of them. And that is actually, that's your view edits. So that allows you to go to your edit stack. So you can undo a change that you've made by clicking undo. You can revert your image back to the original look of the image and get rid of all your edits, or you can click on view edits. And if you click on view edits, what you actually see is what Snapseed calls your edit stack. So that's all the changes that you've made to your image with tools, all available as a stack. And you can click on any one of those. And if you click on the side arrow there, you actually see you can click on the slider and modify the adjustment that you've made. So if you think you've sharpened it too much under your details adjustment, you could go back and reduce the sharpening on that. You've got a little paintbrush which allows you to paint the edit into a particular area. I won't go into too much detail about that because that's something that if you're really into, you really just have to try and you'll see what it can do. And you can even trash the layer completely. Last thing I'll just cover very quickly is looks. So the reason why I covered looks last is because looks is not exactly like an Instagram filter. So with an Instagram filter, which don't get me wrong, is a really powerful way of adjusting a photograph, it can look really good, but you can really only adjust the strength of the filter. Looks in Snapseed is actually basically a set of tools adjustments. If you apply a look to your image, go to your edit stack at the top right-hand corner of your image and go to view edits. And what the image has done, or what it's done to your image, is it's actually added a whole lot of changes as tool style changes to your photo that you can reverse. So it looks like it's added a real glow to my photo when I selected that filter, which I didn't even remember, or that look, which I didn't even remember what it was. But let's just say I think that's pretty damn ugly. So I'm going to go into the glamour glow, which I think is probably what's adding that soft filter, and I'm going to trash it. Now I've got all of the look of the image that I applied, but without the kind of soft glow that I didn't really like. One other thing that we can do in looks, which is really, really useful, is if we scroll to the right of the looks, we actually have a plus icon. What this is going to do is it's going to allow us to change all the tool adjustments that we've just made to our photograph as a look. So I'm going to save this to, I'll call it my portrait filter or whatever, my portrait look. The photograph that I've opened now is taken at similar time, similar lighting conditions to the photograph that I applied all my changes to. I can actually now go to my portrait filter and it will apply all the changes that I made, except for the local selective changes, to this photograph. And just like that, it's kind of edited the photograph to match the other photograph that I just edited. And it looks really good. So we could export that one now, save it with the changes, whatever it is we want to do. So that's it. I hope that's been helpful. That's pretty much all the most useful tools that I can think of in Snapseed, how to use looks and how to reverse particular changes you've made. Hope you can see that Snapseed is a really powerful photo editing application, and I hope you enjoy using it.